Alright, so let's pick up where we left off the last time. The last time we had a diagram that looked a little bit like this right here, which is kind of how all of our diagrams look, so no surprise there. And that diagram had a demand curve and a supply curve, and we had an equilibrium price. And we practiced normative economics, because policy really is just a combination of normative economics and positive economics. And we said that a determination was made by somebody, who, it doesn't really matter, that the equilibrium price was not a fair price for our farmers growing this crop. And we instead decided that this price here was the price that would make our farmers happy. And we drew this dotted line, and we said that we end up with a surplus. All right, so now the question becomes, what do we do with that surplus, that extra grain that we have compelled farmers to produce in order to reach that higher price, right? As a result of seeing that higher price, we've compelled the farmers to produce that extra grain, and we discourage the consumption of that extra grain. So the question becomes, how do we get the price to go up here and still manage to deal with that surplus? There are really only two things you can do in order to get the price to go up, just by kind of commanding it to be the higher price, by saying, here's what the price is going to be. The first thing you can do, right, is what I call the buy it up strategy. And here's how the buy it up strategy works. Let's draw the diagram again. I like drawing the diagram, it's fun. All right. In essence, what you need to do in order to buy up that grain is you need some kind of scheme or mechanism that allows the policymaker, the government, to be the buyer of last resort. And what we did functionally was this, is we said, you know, it's probably not that kosher in the US, where we're a capitalist and believe in free markets, to just buy up all the grain. Or even compel people to buy up all the grain. In fact, if you were to look at the history of Canada, Canada has a thing called the Canadian Wheat Board. I'm not sure if the Canadian Wheat Board is still in operation. I'm pretty sure it violates WTO rules, so it may be gone by now. But for decades, for sure, the Canadian Wheat Board existed. And the Canadian Wheat Board had full market control over wheat in Canada. They had monopoly buying power. If you grew wheat in Canada, you could only sell your wheat to the Canadian Wheat Board. And if you wanted to buy wheat, right, they were a monopoly in the wheat market when they sold their wheat. If you wanted to buy wheat, you had to buy it from the Wheat Board. So if Canada exported wheat, the Wheat Board took care of it. If you wanted wheat to feed the animals, you had to buy it from the Wheat Board. You grew wheat, you sell it to the Wheat Board. And so they were using a strategy much like this. And so what we did in the United States is we said, instead of having a government agency that buys up the grain, what we're going to do is we're going to give our farmers a special loan, right? We called it a non-recourse marketing loan. And we said that we will loan you PL, some amount of money per bushel, to your crop. And so if you grew, 10,000 bushels, we'll loan you whatever it is we declare 10,000 bushels to be worth. And here's the beauty of this program. It was what we called a non-recourse loan. Now, most of you understand what a recourse loan means. That means that if you go out and borrow money to buy a new pickup truck and don't make the payment, they come and take the truck. They sell that truck at the repo auction and come at you for the difference. You still owe the money. Well, in a non-recourse loan, and only governments do these, I've never seen a private company do a non-recourse loan, if you can't pay the loan back and they repossess the collateral for the loan, they don't come at you for the distance. for the difference. And the logic was basically this. We all know that the price is lowest at harvest. So instead of compelling you to sell your grain at harvest for cash flow reasons, or whatever the case may be, we're going to give you a loan equal to the loan rate, PL, multiplied by the amount of corn that you're going to grow. And the details of this were kind of complicated. It's a big bureaucratic enterprise to pull this off. And the basic notion here was that you borrow the money from us, pay off your bank where you got your operating loan from, take care of your family household expenses, and you hold on to the grain until later on in the year when the crop prices go up, because we all know harvest prices are when the crop prices are the lowest. And you then sell your grain and make enough money to pay off the loan and keep what's left over as the money you made off the crop. The problem is that when we do that, we end up with this big surplus that kind of naturally depresses prices. And what ends up happening is you never reach a point where you could afford to pay the loan back. And so what you would do instead is you would let the government repossess your grain. And in effect, the government was buying grain at the loan rate. Another way of thinking about this is if I wanted to buy corn from a farmer and I said, hey farmer, I would like to buy corn from you, and I know that PE, the equilibrium price, is not enough money. I want to buy it right here at this price. Well, the farmer's not stupid. He's going to say, yeah, but the government will pay me this price up here. Why would I sell it to you at this price here when the government will let me sell it to them at this price? And so the net effect is that the government has elevated the market price. If you want to buy corn from a farmer, you've got to pay the loan rate or more, or else the farmer's going to let the government repossess it. So in essence, it was a scheme to buy up grain, but it wasn't presented as a scheme to buy up grain. It was presented as a scheme to loan money to farmers so they could market their crop. It was a marketing loan, because a marketing loan sounds better than, yeah, we're just going to buy it up and set the price to PL. Now, there are some crops where we actually did just set the price to whatever, and we'll talk more about that as we move on throughout the semester. Tobacco, if I don't bring it up, remind me. And so what ends up happening is we have this higher price here. And as we said before, it causes the consumers of corn to buy this quantity here, QD. And they would buy that quantity at the loan rate. They couldn't buy it less than the loan rate. And the farmers are going to produce this quantity here, QS. And the difference between the two is thus a surplus. The government would use this loan concept scheme as a way to basically buy up all the surplus. And when they buy up all the surplus, they in effect push the price up to the loan rate, thereby guaranteeing the farmer that they will have that money. Now, the logic behind this is that one day the price of corn is going to go up, and the government can then unload that surplus and actually make a little bit of money off this policy. The problem is it never actually happened, which kind of makes sense, because if you're encouraging farmers to produce a massive surplus every year for 20, 30, 40 years, there's all this grain sitting in storage waiting for the price to go up one day. We actually got to the point where we started giving it away. When I was a kid, I remember turning on the TV and seeing the news, and we were delivering food aid to places in Africa. Where did that food come from? It was government surplus that we had bought up and didn't have anything to do with, so we basically dumped it on foreign markets at a price of zero and called it food aid. We used it strategically. We used it as a weapon in the Cold War. Now, I'm a Cold War era person. I grew up in the Cold War, so, most people listening to this don't understand what was going on during the Cold War. But we were trying to prevent the spread of this communist idea, mostly because they kind of presented themselves as a challenge to the American military might, and we viewed them as a military enemy. So we were trying to prevent the spread of the communist influence from the Soviet Union. And we would bribe countries with food aid. Yeah, if you'll stay a democracy in a market-based economy, we'll give you food, which is weird because in a market-based economy, people make food and sell food, and you profit from it. But if we're giving people food, then we're really just circumventing the market, which I don't know. We do weird things in ag policy. None of it makes sense to me. It defies logic. So let's stop right there. The first thing you can do is buy it up, and that is the thing I just showed you. So now I'm going to show you the next thing, and this video's been droning on, so I'm going to cut into the next video and show you the next thing.